Right now, as you listen to this sentence, something remarkable is happening that no scientist on Earth can fully explain. Sound waves are hitting your eardrums, converting into electrical signals, traveling through neurons, triggering chemical reactions in your brain. That part, science understands reasonably well. But somewhere in that process, something else is also happening. Something stranger. You're experiencing it. There's something it's like from the inside to hear these words, to understand them, to feel curious or skeptical or bored while you listen. That inner experience, what philosophers call qualia, the raw first person, what its likeness of being conscious, is not the same thing as the neurons firing. And nobody, in any lab, in any research paper, has ever managed to explain how you get from one to the other. This is called the hard problem of consciousness, and it might be the single most stubborn, unsolved question in all of science. Today, we're going to break down why it's so hard, why some of the most brilliant minds in philosophy and neuroscience openly admit they don't have an answer, and what that gap might be pointing toward. To understand why this problem is so difficult, we need a distinction that the philosopher David Chalmers introduced back in 1995, and it's become one of the most influential ideas in the field: the difference between the easy problems of consciousness and the hard problem. The easy problems, and to be clear, easy here is relative. These are still genuinely difficult scientific questions. Include things like, how does the brain process visual information? How does it integrate different senses into one unified experience? How does it store and retrieve memories, or focus attention on one thing while filtering out another? These are hard in the ordinary scientific sense, but they're the kind of questions neuroscience is actually built to answer. You can study brain structures, track neural activity, run experiments, and make real progress, because these are fundamentally questions about function, about what the brain does and how it does it. The hard problem is different in kind, not just in degree. It's this: even after you've fully mapped every neuron, every electrical signal, every chemical process involved in, say, seeing the color red, why is there something it's like to see red at all? Why isn't all that neural processing just happening in the dark, so to speak, with no inner experience attached to it whatsoever? You could imagine, at least in principle, a being that processes visual information exactly the way you do, reacts to red objects exactly the way you do, even says, "I see red exactly the way you do," but has no inner experience at all. Philosophers call this a philosophical zombie, and the fact that we can coherently imagine such a being, functioning identically to a conscious person, but with nobody home inside, suggests that consciousness itself isn't the same thing as the physical processing, even though the two are obviously connected. Here's the deeper issue, and it's one that even committed physicalists, scientists and philosophers who believe consciousness must ultimately be nothing but physical brain activity, openly wrestle with. Physical descriptions are, by their very nature, descriptions of structure and function. This neuron connects to that one. This chemical triggers that electrical signal. This brain region activates during that task. Structure and function is what physics and neuroscience are built to describe. But subjective experience, the redness of red, the sharpness of pain, the specific taste of coffee, doesn't seem to be a structural or functional property at all. It's a qualitative one. And there's no obvious bridge that logically gets you from, here is the structure and function of a system, to, and therefore this system has an inner felt experience. You can describe every physical detail of a bat's brain in flight, but you still haven't explained what it's like from the inside to be that bat, navigating by echolocation. The philosopher Thomas Nagel raised exactly this example decades ago, and it's never been resolved. This isn't a temporary gap, waiting for better brain scanning technology either. And this is the crucial point that separates the hard problem from ordinary scientific mysteries. More detailed brain scans, better neural mapping, more precise chemistry. None of that closes the logical gap between these physical processes are occurring and there is subjective experience accompanying them. You could have a perfect, complete map of every neuron in someone's brain, know exactly which ones fire when they see red, and you still wouldn't have explained why that firing is accompanied by an experience at all, rather than happening with nobody experiencing anything. That's why some serious philosophers of mind describe this as possibly the one scientific mystery that's not just currently unsolved, but structurally resistant to ever being solved through physical description alone, no matter how advanced our tools become. Given how difficult this problem is, philosophers and scientists have proposed several different ways of handling it, and it's worth knowing the landscape honestly. Some hold onto strict physicalism, insisting that consciousness must ultimately reduce to physical brain processes, even if we don't yet understand how, essentially betting that future science will eventually close the gap, even though no current theory shows how that would work even in principle. Others have moved toward a view called panpsychism, which proposes that consciousness, or something like a basic form of experience, is a fundamental property of matter itself, present in some primitive form even at the level of particles, rather than something that mysteriously switches on only once brains get complex enough. It's a serious position taken by respected philosophers, but critics point out it doesn't actually solve the hard problem so much as spread it out. You still have to explain how simple, primitive experience at the particle level somehow combines into the rich, unified consciousness you're experiencing right now, which is sometimes called the combination problem. And then there's substance dualism, the view, with deep roots in both philosophy and Christian theology, that consciousness, or the soul, is not simply identical to physical brain matter at all, but is a genuinely distinct kind of reality, intimately connected to the brain and body, interacting with them constantly, but not reducible to them. This is notably the position that best explains why the hard problem is hard in the first place. If consciousness genuinely isn't a purely physical property, of course, a purely physical description will never fully capture it. The gap isn't a temporary embarrassment for science. It's exactly what you'd expect to find if this view is correct. I want to be careful here. The same way we've tried to be careful throughout this whole series. The hard problem of consciousness doesn't hand you a proof of the soul wrapped up neatly. Serious philosophers on all sides of this question, including plenty who aren't religious at all, take the hard problem seriously as a genuine, unresolved puzzle. But it's worth noticing what the honest state of this field actually is. This isn't a settled question awaiting a mechanical answer. The way, how does the eye process light, was eventually settled. It's a live, contested, genuinely open philosophical question, sitting right at the center of neuroscience. And some of the field's sharpest thinkers have concluded that consciousness may simply not be the kind of thing that physical explanation, on its own terms, is built to capture. Scripture describes human beings as made of both dust and breath, formed from the physical stuff of the earth, and animated by something more, the breath of God, in Genesis chapter 2. It describes us as embodied and ensouled at once, not a ghost haunting a machine, and not merely a machine with no ghost at all, but something more integrated and more mysterious than either extreme. The hard problem of consciousness doesn't prove that account, but it does suggest that the purely mechanical picture, the idea that you are nothing but neurons, full stop, with no remainder to explain, has a much larger hole in it than most people realize. So is consciousness fully explained by physical brain processes alone? By the honest admission of philosophers across the spectrum, not yet, and possibly not ever. if the hard problem really is as fundamental as it looks. That gap between the firing of neurons and the felt reality of being you. Reading these words, thinking your own thoughts right now, remains one of the strangest, most stubborn mysteries in all of science. And maybe that's because you were never meant to be explained by matter alone. Thanks for watching. If this gave you something to think about, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.